Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Nate Reads Diversely. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nate Glansman. I am a sensitivity reader who has worked with private clients and major publishers since 2018. And I am here to talk about dissociative identity disorder and how to write a character with dissociative identity. So, DID is one of the most misunderstood disorders, probably the most misunderstood disorder. It's something that I do have diagnosed by a psychologist. I'm here because I care about the portrayal of people who have this condition in media because misrepresentation does impact real people. So we're going to be talking about what DID is, how those symptoms can present in a character that you write, and some common pitfalls that I often see when sensitivity reading for authors who do not have DID, who write characters who have DID. Some disclaimers before we begin. I am not a doctor. This video should not be used as something to diagnose yourself or someone you know if they have DID. That's not my business. That's between you and whoever your doctor is. And we are not going to be talking about DID adjacent disorders like OSDD or anything like that. Specifically going to be talking about DID, and we're not going to be talking about endogenic systems or like anything around DID. It's specifically about DID, and we're going to be going off of clinical data, not TikTok. Okay. So something that I want to make very clear is that DID is not like other disorders. Like it's not like something like OCD where depending on the severity, it only impacts a certain part of your life. DID is one of those disorders that impacts everything about your life 24/7, 100% of the time. This disorder comes about when you have been traumatized significantly in childhood and your personality and your sense of self is split into different pieces because your brain can't handle the magnitude of the trauma that you experienced. Like that's just how it is. So when you write a character with DID, you have to keep that in mind where this disorder is this person's brain. It is this person's way of navigating the world. Writing a character with DID, it would be really helpful to understand that this person's brain does not work in the same way that a typical brain does because it's kind of like raising a bonsai tree where when the bonsai tree is like a baby, you manipulate the roots to grow a certain way. And so that's how it grows. When you have a character with DID, it's essentially somebody who is so traumatized in childhood that their sense of self and personality and way of navigating the world is split into different sections. Someone who has this condition is not going to experience and move about the world the same way a singular personality would. And this is going to be true whether they are consciously a system or not. You can have a character who knows that they are a part of a system. You can have a character who doesn't know and dealing with the consequences of maybe their alters acting in a way that isn't natural for them and they have to figure it out. It really kind of depends on what type of story you want to tell. An important thing to remember also is that you need trauma to have DID. Specifically dissociative identity disorder, you need a significant amount of childhood trauma. In my experience, my condition was caused by CSA. Okay, so like that level of trauma needs to happen in early childhood when the personality is still forming. We're going to go into the DSM-5 criteria and we're going to go over that and I'm going to explain how this might look in a character that you write. So here's the diagnostic criteria. Sometimes with diagnostic criteria, they'll have a list of things that it's like if you have at least 5 of these 7 symptoms or something, but DID, the DSM-5 criteria for DID is you need all of these in order to qualify. First one is disruption of identity characterized by 2 or more distinct personalities. I'm going to add here, I have personally never met a system who only has 2 because when you grow up in an environment where you literally have to be different people to survive, there's usually more than one function that you have to, become. I've personally never met anybody with just two, but I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I don't think it's that common. Disruption of identity characterized by two or more distinct personality states, which may be described in some cultures as an experience of possession. Disruption of marked discontinuity in sense of self and sense of agency, accompanied by related alterations in affect, behavior, consciousness, memory, perception, cognition, and other sensory motor functioning. So, discontinuity in sense of self and sense of agency. So, an important thing to remember is that if you have a character with DID, that character grew up without a solid sense of self. That character would have grown up in an environment where they were not permitted to be one person because they had a significant amount of childhood trauma and then also had expectations in the world around them that required them to be different people at different times. Sense of agency, DID is not formed by environments that allow senses of agency. Okay. So, like when you have a character with DID, that character would have been put through something extremely traumatic and they would not have control over like anything. So, just keep that in mind. Like, it's DID is born of significant trauma plus restrictive environment where they're expected to fulfill certain roles. These signs and symptoms may be observed by others or reported by the individual. Going back to sometimes systems are cognizant that they are systems and sometimes. So how would this look in a character? Well, going back to the example of the character who doesn't know they're a system, for instance, you were writing a character with DID and them dealing with the consequences of what happens when another personality switches in, another alter switches in, and they are like, what do you mean I did that? Like so it's kind of like a mystery of trying to figure out like, okay, like what did I do? A mystery thriller, but you're the one who did the thing. It's a scary experience. The second one is recurrent gaps in recall of everyday events, important personal information, and or traumatic events that are inconsistent with ordinary forgetting. I've lost a lot of friends due to this disorder. There are people who know an alter but don't know me. There are people who seen me switch and were like, "Whoa, like what the hell is going on?" It's a scary thing to go through but also to witness from the outside. So like when you have DID, the experience of navigating the world is that you're not going to there are certain states. So when you're a DID system, you're not going to be experiencing the same things that your alters experience all the time because that would kind of defeat the whole purpose of having the disorder because the disorder is born again from having a traumatic experience in childhood that splits your sense of self and personality into different pieces. There's a level of expectation and control that is put on you to function in a certain way so that those separate sections of your personality fulfill certain roles in your environment. So as a result of that, alters are not going to experience the same things at the same time. They're not going to remember the same things because that's the function of the disorder. Like the disorder is born because you, as one person, cannot handle traumatic things that are happening to you, kind of have to compartmentalize, share the load with separate sections of your personality. So there are certain alters of ours who remember things that I as the host don't remember. Kind of just depends on the person who remembers what and how they experience things that happen. The third one is the symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, and other important areas of functioning. It is possible to be quote unquote functional and have this disorder. Like you can have a job, you can have friends, you can have family, but a lot of the times it's an isolating experience because if you have people who are close to you, like they're going to know that you're shutting them out of important areas of life and it's not personal, just the way that this person grew up where that specific role that is tied to that specific friendship satisfies like that specific. So it's possible for a character to have DID who is switches in as one alter at work and then switches as another alter at home, switches as another alter with certain friend groups. And if someone is in different areas of their life and then those areas combine in some way, let's say you have a character and they switch at an alter of theirs is the one that is at work and then the host is the one that takes care of the home life. You could have a situation where you go to like a work function and you bring your family. And so you have to like juggle the system could go into like shutdown panic mode because it's like, oh, well, like who are we supposed to be in this instance? It could really mess with your character. So like think about who your host is and who and like what in their environment, what they need to be in specific areas of their environment and what alters fill those roles because that's going to be the basis for plot and their internal and external conflicts. The fourth one is the disturbance is not a normal part of a broadly accepted cultural or religious practice. Note in children, these symptoms are not better explained by imaginary playmates or other fantasy play. Yeah, I mean it's very different than having imaginary friends because imaginary friends satisfy a personal need in the child. Alters in children satisfy a need in the child's environment. If a child is significantly traumatized and then their family expects them to care for a younger child in their family, that personality is going to split and they're going to be different people in those situations because that's how they were raised. That's how their brain needed to function in order to survive in its environment. It's very different than having just voices in your head or something like that, because voices in your head or imaginary friends, those are specifically for to satisfy like fantasy desires in the individual. But alters are things that come about when the environment puts you under so much pressure that you need to be different people. So keep that in mind. The last one is the symptoms are not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance or another medical condition. So there's a lot of differential diagnosis that needs to go into it because DID is a very specific disorder that only occurs in a very specific way. The next, we're going to go into stereotypes and harmful portrayals that characters with DID typically present in media. So the first one is that characters with DID are typically murderers, people who do really extreme crimes. That's not always necessarily the case. None of us, this body, this identity, whatever you want to call it, this legal person who is Nathaniel Glansman, we've never committed a crime, so it is possible to have this disorder and not have a criminal record. However, in media, it's often portrayed as like, oh, this is like the ultimate crazy person, and they do these really extreme things. It's like it's not always like that. Having a character with DID who is a killer, it's tired. It's been done before. It's often in more ways than one. It's going to be an ableist portrayal. The second thing I want to talk about is like the concept of system responsibility. Let's say you have a character and they're at a bar and then they get triggered and an alter switches in and the alter gets to a bar fight. If that character gets arrested, then the whole body of that character goes to jail. That includes the alters who were not involved. That includes their, younger child alters, their littles if they have any. That includes everybody. So and they're likely going to be, when the host switches in or when somebody else switches in, they're going to be like, what are we doing here? Because alters don't experience the same things at the same time because that would defeat the whole purpose of having the disorder. Think about system responsibility because when one alter screws up, then the entire system is the one that kind of deals with the consequences of that. So just keep that in mind. The third thing that I want to talk about is like the concept of good and evil alters. I've personally never seen this in real life where like it's an angel and a devil on your shoulder. It's not as reductive as having like an angel on a devil on your shoulder where it's like two separate things or anything like that. It's like it's much more complex than that in real life. In my experience, there are alters who are born from having those expectations placed on you and then fulfilling certain good roles or something like that. And there are alters who are born from repressed rage who fulfill certain things, but it's not like as reductive as just good and bad. One is good and one is evil. It's not like that in real life. Fourth thing that I want to talk about is that not all DID systems work the same. So like if you're watching this video, then I'm sure you've already seen YouTubers or, people online of any of the DID YouTubers, social media people. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're already familiar with certain roles that alters can play, like roles that alters satisfy, the primary protector, like things like that. Not all systems work the same. So there is a possibility to write a character who doesn't have all of the roles that you often see in like in TikTok and social media and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. I want to give attention to this. This is somebody's examination of portrayal of dissociative identity disorder in films. I'm gonna go to the chart where it kind of it shows really popular movies that feature characters with DID and then their similarities and differences. Fight Club and Split, those portray DID as like kind of like an angel and the devil, like I talked about before, that reductive like good and evil kind of thing. That's not how it is in real life. So I do encourage you to read this article because it'll give you a sense of how characters with DID are portrayed in fiction and why people have a problem with certain portrayals. So again, people with DID often have two or more than two distinct personalities. The condition comes with amnesia and gaps in memory because the purpose of having DID, if a person's brain develops from childhood into, it's because they have certain they've experienced things that their child's brain can't handle, and that they also have expectations that they need to fulfill in a very controlled environment. So amnesia or gaps of memory is just a part of the condition. This is a distressing disorder to have for the person experiencing it, but also the people observing the person. I've lost a lot of friends due to this condition, and it just is what it is. It's nobody's fault. It's just it comes off as lying. When people find out that you're not the same way with them as opposed to other people, it's like people are gonna feel betrayed by that, and that's just how it is. It's not a part of culture or religion. To meet the criteria for the disorder, it's like it would need to be something that's like not due to like possession or some kind of. I mean, I'm sure there would be a way to write a character who is like shamanic and who takes on like different spirits and stuff like that, but that wouldn't be DID because that would be like a function of that person's job in that tribe. So it's completely different. And it's not due to a substance. So like, again, encourage you to check that one out. And another thing that I want to mention too is the fifth stereotype and harmful portrayal that I want to talk about is a lot of the times when people write characters with DID, what ends up happening to the character with DID is that the ultimate goal is to integrate. So you would have a character with DID who is like split up in the beginning, and then it would end with the character integrating at the end. I would advise that if integration is something that happens at the end of the book, it has to be the system's choice to do that. Because if the character is integrating for the sake of other characters or to adapt to their environment, that takes away their agency. So when you're thinking about a character with DID, think about what you're doing with that character and how that character ends up at the end of the story. So integration should not be like the be all and end all goal. And I also want to go through common pitfalls that I see authors make whenever I sensitivity read for characters with DID. So a lot of the times when I read authors who do not have DID writing characters with DID, all of their alters' voices sound the same on the page, and it's really really hard unless like the name is at the top of the chapter heading. Like it's really hard for me to tell who's who, and that's going to and look, writing in different voices and it is a really really hard thing to do, and it's something that uh you really only um can it's a skill that you really only can develop after like years and years of writing, so just keep that in mind where your if you have a character with DID, like those alters are not going their internal voices, their external voices are not going to sound the same as the host character. You need to write these characters as like these alters as separate characters because that's what they are in the system. Like they have to be separate people in order for the host to fulfill the obligations that they have. So the second thing, the second pitfall that I see a lot of the time is that um, that alters have like the same goals and the same experiences as the host character, and that would defeat the whole purpose of having a character with DID because in with DID, if everyone remembered the trauma, if everyone remembered the like the things that in DID you have to compartmentalize, then you wouldn't have DID. Then you would just be a singular person who remembers everything, and that's not how DID functions. Certain alters are going to have certain experiences because they are fulfilling a certain role in that person's life. And so you have secrecy between alters. You have alters who hold on to certain memories that the host is not able to synthesize, right? So another pitfall that I see is that people will write characters with DID who do not have significant childhood trauma, and that is that so in that case that person would not have DID because their personality would not have formed in childhood to experience to have this disorder at all. Those are the basics of like things to think about when you're writing a character with DID. We went over like the symptoms of DID and how that can look in a character portrayal. We went over stereotypes and harmful portrayals that I often see in my line of work, and then also common pitfalls that I see whenever I am sensitivity reading for a character with DID. So if so this is kind of like an introductory video to these concepts. If you would like me to go into more detail on certain aspects of this disorder, I'd be happy to do that. Just write me a comment, and I will catch you guys next time. Take care.